Okay, what is up, guys? Ryan here. We're going to do another awesome Clubhouse Live. Really excited for this. We got a great topic tonight. So if you are watching on the live stream, join the conversation. I just posted a link. Join the conversation on Clubhouse. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Are you on, Tiff? Heard some clickety-clack. Oh, there's some people. There we go. So let's get some people up on the stage here. You there, Tiff?
Corn.
What? Tiffany. Okay, I don't know what that was. Crazy. All right, so today's conversation, there was an active shooting at a high school in North Carolina earlier today. Sounds like only one person got injured, nobody dead, one person injured, but it just kind of brought up the topic in my mind, and I'm sure this is going to reinvigorate the topic of gun control and how do we really keep our children safe from a potential school shooter. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'm going to invite some people up here on the stage. Vinny, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, dude. They just actually announced the guy who got shot in North Carolina, the kid that got shot, passed away.
Who? Oh, he did.
Yeah, that's what they just said on the news. They said he passed away. There was just a big thing over, and they were doing a news conference, and they said the kid passed away.
That sucks, dude.
Yeah, it does. They still haven't found the guy either, the shooter. They haven't found him. He's still at large.
Okay, do you guys still have an echo when I'm talking?
Sounds good to me.
Does it? Okay. Voice sounds funny. Of course. Yeah, interesting. So how do they not have the shooter yet? That doesn't make much sense, Vinny. Was this a... Do they even have an idea of who it was? Was it another student, or was it just some random person that walked into the school? What do we know?
That's what the two choices are right now, is what they're saying during this this news conference. They're believing that it was another student that did it.
Yeah.
But they're not really sure yet. They're still trying to break it down. And that was the last that was discussed. The sheriff of the town was up talking, but then of course the news cut short on it after they announced that the kid passed away.
Wow. That is really crazy. So what are...
Still at large looking.
Yeah. So what is your idea, Vinny? Like, this is going to be the big hot topic over the next couple weeks, right? What's the solution to prevent this kind of stuff from happening?
No, for sure. They're already talking about it, like how they, no guns allowed in school, and this is what the people are going after. Instead of saying, I guess they want to put up more of the signs that say, gun-free zone, which we all know doesn't work.
Sure.
Just like, in Florida, when you guys have hurricanes, how come they just don't put up the no hurricane zone, It works just as much as they do.
Okay, I think I fixed the audio now, so you guys let me know in the comments whether the audio is better or whether it still sounds weird. Yeah, that's pretty funny, Vinny. I've actually never heard that before, but putting up a sign that says no hurricanes allowed, that's pretty hilarious, man.
Well, that's the same thing, isn't it? That's the way I feel about it. You could put up a sign that says anything. A sign is a sign. It's what people are going to do. So why not protect ourselves? We're not allowed to protect ourselves. I mean, I know in certain states, right now I happen to be in New York, like I told you on Monday.
Yeah.
Mom's not feeling too good, so I came down to New York to try to help her out. But here, people aren't allowed to protect themselves at all. If somebody breaks into your house, you hit them with a bat, you're going to jail. Their family sues you. That's not, should I put like no entry allowed? But they still do it anyway.
Yeah, it's really crazy because it seems like a lot of these laws and a lot of things that they do, really what it does is it stops the good person. It stops the hero of the story from defending themselves, and it gives all the power over to the criminal. Joe, are you there?
I am.
How are you, man?
I'm doing terrific. How about you?
Another exciting day. Besides, like, the never-ending tech issues with doing live streams. Like, oh my gosh, man, this is crazy.
Yeah, but somehow you always overcome them. So congratulations.
Always overcome, Joe. Just like the Israelites. They always overcome.
Oh,
You're talking about the good old days when we had no technology for the Israelites. They didn't have to deal with all this Clubhouse and YouTube and algorithms. Think about how good they had it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you could, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's better before or if it's better today. It's definitely different. Yeah.
It is what it is. That's how I look at it.
Joe, what do you think about today's topic? What do you think about the shooting in North Carolina? And what is a solution to try to keep our kids safe inside of schools? How do we protect them?
One of the things that I thought was brilliant is on the USCCA website, when you do the Protector Academy and Level 3, they talk about analyzing the active shooter.
Okay.
And they actually analyzed all the active shootings. And they talked about, okay, if you are not going to arm teachers and you are not going to allow, you're going to keep those gun-free zones as gun-free zones, then rather than spend $6 million on a football field, which some high schools do, it would cost a fraction of that, maybe 10% of that, to fortify doors, put gates, cameras, and better security systems in place that will prevent, for the most part, I don't know if anything really is foolproof, to prevent the opportunity and make it very prohibitive for a mass shooter or someone who's thinking about coming to that school even possible. And there was actually a school that did that, and I don't remember if it was Idaho or there was another state in Midwest that actually did that. Revamped the entire school, and it is unbelievable, and it cost them $400,000, whereas a football field costs $6 million. So they're willing to spend $6 million on that. But with all the stuff they're talking about making the kids safer, they're not willing to spend 10% of that to make the school 99% proof from such events. So explain to me how there are solutions on the table, yet they don't want to implement them. But they're willing to take away our right as law-abiding citizens from actually being productive and being assets rather than liabilities to school children if we have the opportunity to protect them. We have no opportunity, yet they're not willing to do something that is within the law, like fortifying the school. They'd rather take the guns away from us.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, even when the Parkland shooting happened here in Florida, they had all these big meetings at the Florida legislature. What are we going to do to prevent something like this from ever happening again? And I feel like they focus on stuff that doesn't matter and don't want to talk about things that will actually make a difference. It's like parents, and one of the common themes is we don't want with armed teachers. Somebody is mentioning teachers need to be armed here, which I agree with. They say, I don't want my kids to be around an armed teacher. Man, there was I think it was a football coach at the Parkland High School who used his body as a human shield to protect other kids from Nicholas Cruz. What would have happened if you gave that teacher a gun against Nicholas Cruz? He still might have died, but he might have saved a lot of children's lives. I would rather my kid's teacher has a gun and has the ability to protect the other kids than just leave him there with nothing. And kind of to your point of how they spend money on a football field and on stuff that doesn't matter, when in reality, they need to, when I was in the military, we had entry control points, right? We had doors that you could only go in one way. They had locks. You had to have a card to get in, right? I went to my kid's old school and I walked up, I tried to open the door and it was locked, and they came on the little speaker and they said, hey, you got to show us your ID before we can let you in. So I was like, oh, okay. So I'm in my pocket trying to get my wallet out and show them my ID, and a parent that was inside the school came over and opened the door for me and was like, oh, here you go, sir. I was like, good job, guys. Good job. So you installed this gate. You're trying to prevent me from getting in, and somebody just let me in. Roger, what do you think about this topic today?
You guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, just a comment, just to respond to your last comment. I call that security by obscurity. That's a term we commonly use in the information technology field, which I happen to be in.
Okay.
Kind of securing something by confusing those that use it. That's not security. That's relying on people's stupidity and ignorance to secure something, but there's always that one person who will figure it out and find a backdoor into a secure area.
Sure.
So that's not security. Yeah, and getting back to your original topic regarding arming teachers in schools, Israel is actually doing that right now. And they've been doing it for a long time because they have an enemy right across the border that's constantly shelling them with rockets, grenades, and whatnot. And I mean, mind you, the teachers there are all former IDF soldiers. So they have training in the use of firearms, and that's not a problem. What's wrong with training teachers here in the United States to properly handle firearms in a safe manner? I've been trained. I mean, if I can be trained, so can somebody else.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
And to your point, I'm sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
Go ahead, Joe. I'm done.
So to your point, Roger, this is actually a very good point, is I grew up until age 12 in Israel, and I went to elementary school there. And
nice.
I remember our schools back then had very steel gates. Every area, every entrance to the school had at least two kids that are there to question, and they trained us how to question people that are coming to the school, who to let in, when to call a teacher. We had drills every week for, I would say, probably 2 or 3 times a week, where the siren would sound. They would walk us. We would have an exit to the shelter, the bomb shelter, where we would go in, and we would do all that, and we were trained and educated. When we were in the Cub Scouts, and we would go on trips, camping trips and hiking trips, there would be 16-year-old kids, high school kids, with Uzis accompanying us.
Yep.
Everywhere. And everyone, so you grow up in that environment where you are trained from a very young age on situational awareness, on survival techniques. It prepares you for the military, which I did not serve in because I left when I was 12. But they prepare you from very young age because everyone is obligated to do it. And the earlier you start, it doesn't look strange to you. Over here, we lived in a bubble for so long, and we still refuse to understand the importance of training from a young age to do that. We would rather just take that security away and leave ourselves vulnerable.
Yeah, it's called feel-good politics.
Very true. And you're right, Joe. You know, we live in relative safety in America. Our society, compared to Israel, compared to Afghanistan and some of these other places, we are extremely safe. And because of that, you know, I heard Joe Rogan say on his podcast the other day, he said, tough times create hard men create easy times create soft men create hard times. You know, we live in a very soft society. It's very comfortable, and because of that, people have let their guard down significantly. But the wolves are out there, and we got to make sure that we're ready and that we're preparing our kids for them. Howard, what do you have to say about this topic?
It's really interesting. I'm moving out of the police state, New York, to
Awesome.
Sarasota, and I've been following this problem in the country, and I'm a firm believer in making it obvious that it's not a no-gun zone. And I'm also interested in why they don't just put a very strong deterrent, whether it's off-duty police or highly trained and vetted, volunteers, because a deterrent is number one as far as I'm concerned. And of course, Israel, understands that better than most. And in New York, unfortunately, I live under Comrade Blasio and
Yeah.
the former governor. But the point that I'm leaving is when I lived upstate outside of New York City, I was able to shoot every week, no problem. And and it's a different world. Like they say, when you live in New York City, you leave New York City, you go to America. So I'm interested in why Florida, especially with DeSantis, uh, doesn't come up with a system for all schools generally to have a deterrent, an armed, obvious presence in the school. That has to be, for me, become questionable for any shooter to take advantage of an easy
Shut the door.
target.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's because we have weak people that are trying to make decisions that they are not qualified to make.
Who's voting for them? Ryan, excuse me. Who's voting? I'm choosing when I move to Sarasota, which is in like about 90 days,
Yeah.
to get as active as possible, 2A, and involved in any of the elections of any of these people that are the decision makers that are making these questionable decisions and that live in comfort zones per se. So I'm just wondering why there isn't more of a movement to target specific people that are making these decisions.
What does that mean, target them? Are you saying like get them out of office?
Voting. No, the voting wise. I'm talking about they are voted into their positions, I would think, unless there's a governor, mayor, or someone that designates them to a specific job. Most of them are elected,
Sure.
and that's why they're actively, passing certain bills or rulings for counties.
Yep.
I mean, I'm also wondering why there hasn't been a sanctuary to a ruling for the state of Florida with all the aggressiveness of the anti-gun movement, including Bloomberg. But I'm really interested in getting very active in going for better candidates that have an open mind to solutions rather than woe is me.
Yeah, I don't know if school boards, when it comes to this topic, really care about the facts. I think they're more concerned about the emotion. Like, let's just go back to the Parkland high school shooting. Nicholas Cruz, the police came to Nicholas Cruz's home something like 30-something times. I don't remember the exact number. The FBI was warned that Nicholas Cruz had aspirations to be a school shooter twice, and the FBI did nothing. The school knew that Nicholas Cruz had some severe psychological issues, and they chose to do nothing.
Ryan, excuse me, he was part of the school at a time, and if he knew that there was an armed presence on site, I don't know that he would have followed through.
But Howard, there was armed presence. He knew that there was armed presence, and there was a sheriff's deputy there when the shooting started. But the sheriff's deputy was a coward. When the gunshots started going off, this sheriff went and hid in the parking lot instead of actually going and doing something. So again,
I didn't know that.
You can put a cop out of school. It doesn't mean that cop's either there to collect a paycheck or that cop is actually there to protect people. Jesse Madsen, who was a friend of mine, Tampa police officer who died in the line of duty just a couple months ago, when a person was, I believe, drunk, driving the wrong way on I-4, and Jesse swerved his patrol car right in front of this guy and killed himself and killed the bad guy. That's what we need in law enforcement out of school.
Yes.
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, for me, the answer is 2. I mean, I don't believe you can get 2 cowards at a time. That's kind of rare in my thinking. But You have to have an offset. If one is going to be, go punk on you, I mean, there has to be the other guy. But as far as I'm concerned, if there are different exits to a school, there can be two. I'm just looking for solutions. I don't have the answers, obviously, and the school boards are not aggressively, approaching the problem with solutions. It's just like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And it's just debate rather than taking any kind of action. So if the one was a coward and left and went into the parking lot, which I wasn't aware of, uh, I'm just wondering how we could remedy that with double the presence. If that, I don't know if that's the answer, but I'm not thinking of anything else at this point.
If I
So,
may, yeah, go
oh,
ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
sorry there, Joe. So
No worries.
I feel like the school thing is just like firearm safety. It's a multi-level approach. So what Joe was saying about Israel, I mean, all schools, they should have the steel doors. They should have, a fence around the property. They should have an armed resource officer. They should have several different things, including an extensive mental health program at the school as well. Because when these kids, get reported and stuff, they should, right away have to start taking these mental health kind of, classes or whatever it is, and meet with the mental health officer however many times a week and get them help. So I think it's a little bit of everything that needs to happen in these schools, that all kind of, go on top of each other and has that multi-layer, so that if one of them falls through, you still have the other ones as a backup. The issue is that they're worried about, gender bathrooms and stuff like this, instead of focusing on the massive issue of mental health, which has been seen time and time and time again in these school shootings. Every single one of these kids had a mental health issue.
But it goes back to what I call the pussification of America. One of the things that happened with Nicholas Cruz is they knew he had some mental health issues, but they didn't want to actually label him or classify him as a mental health kind of patient or person that needs help. So instead, they just let him stay at the school. They try to push it under the rug because they're hypersensitive about people's feelings. There are some people that don't belong in society. When we identify those people, we need to pull them out of society. Kind of like this last week, we had the case of the man who just decided one day that he was going to plow his car into a family, killed the dad, wounded the two kids. And there was another one. Man, I can't think of it right now. But, when we identify these people, we've got to do something. When a family member realizes my family member has severe issues, they need to have a place to go, a place to get help for that family. Instead of right now, it's just a stone wall. There's nothing.
Ryan, I believe you're talking about the 21-year-old in Lakeland that shot his grandmother.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And the mom, they had reported him, that he had mental health issues and they were worried about him. But because he didn't want help, there was, kind of nothing. I guess some people were saying, he could have got Baker acted. But again, the same thing happens. They go in, they get, 24 hours, they get evaluated. And 9 times out of 10, they just get let go because where do I put you? You never committed a crime. I see that you're kind of loony, but there's nowhere to put you. There's no hospital to put you in. There's no anywhere, unless you're worried about you harming yourself. Sometimes they'll check you into the hospital for a night to be watched for 24 hours, but then again, you're back on the street. So, in order to, or ready to go commit a crime. So we don't have anything after that 24-hour thing that can help these people. So they need to, go see a psychiatrist. They need to be put on antipsychotic meds. But again, they don't have health insurance. They can't afford the meds, whatever it is. And there's no programs for these. So Unfortunately, with these kids, there's a few things that all of them did, and that was that they had mental health issues, that they, come from broken homes, that they were considered loners, they were bullied. So why were none of those things, caught beforehand? Hey, this kid's being bullied. Let's get him some help. Hey, let's get him into an after-school program, something like that. Just a lot of red flags being missed and overlooked, and then it becomes the perfect storm.
That's 100% correct. I have to just interject. It seems to me that, it always drops to the school board to start making decisions for that particular school or the county. And I'm just looking for some way that a bill could become statewide, that there has to be, forming a general ruling for all schools to address those mental health issues. And that's excellent point. And the multiple security aspects are also absolutely the way to go. But I think it has to be the big picture approached rather than county by county and individual school board by school board, because that to me is what I call a mental hernia. Because, I don't know that anything will be consistent. I mean, you can leave one county and take your kid to another school, and it becomes a whole different scenario, possibly. So everything that was suggested that you just spoke of is right on the money. But I'm just wondering, how do we get to a statewide dictate or mandate or ruling or law to like actually strongly address the problem once and for all, rather than just picking at this and picking at that, and things fall by the wayside. They're not upheld consistently, and it's very frustrating to see it. And that the anti-gunners, are just looking for, I mean, and I fear that they would absolutely go so far as to cause a situation so that they could push the agenda. So I'm just wondering if we can follow all the things that were just suggested, in multiple security aspects and the mental health approach, but get it to statewide ruling, law, or mandate. And I'm just wondering how. That's why I'm talking about getting to the voting aspect of it as a populace.
Yeah, it needs to be countrywide, I think.
I
But I
agree.
think
I agree.
it needs to be, a group of this, like Moms Demand Action and what other people
Yes.
are doing. We need to start getting people to realize and getting people to understand the magnitude of this problem, and that it can be fixed with these things. And then how can we implement this? How do we get extra funding for the schools? How do we help them implement this and things like that? So it's not a small task, and you're right. We can all talk about it, but something has to be done. It's just
I'm.
I don't know who that person
I
is.
am seeing that, there are more ex-military leaving the military and so fed up that they're either running for Senate, for Congress, I mean, they are absolutely getting involved politically. And with the approach that a military thinking person would have, to me, would be tremendously constructive in answering the problem, because they are just basically security oriented. So I'm just, that's why I keep coming back to movement, to help elect and to make changes in rules, laws, or mandates to help secure the problem. We have, the only way to go beyond just conversation is to get the kind of people in place, possibly, as long as they don't lie, uh, to help expedite certain things that need to be done rather than talked about only.
Okay, I want to hear from Arthur. Arthur, what do you have to add to this conversation? Arthur, are you there? Going once. Going twice.
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, back in my day, we didn't have school shootings. It's all, I don't know how to explain that. Most people have mental, like, whatever you call it,
Yeah, mental health
mental
problems.
health, yeah, mental health problems, and most parents won't get their their the kid help. Some kids will like ask for help, and most parents won't, like, oh, it's nothing, don't worry about it. And schools are like, oh, he needs help, and the parents are like, oh no, he don't. You don't know what you're talking about.
Sure.
And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good point. How much of this falls on the parents and
Yeah,
how they're letting their kids, do whatever after school, not checking in. Like the school shooter in the Columbine, I think it was, they said that he would spend, hours and hours and hours in his room, wouldn't even come down for dinner, wouldn't even open the door for his mom. I mean, like weird stuff like that. So that's not a normal, 15-year-old kid. So
yeah. And he was online. He was online. You know, he was looking up stuff like, you know, I can do this and I can do that. My mom won't know. She don't know what I'm doing online. You know, she don't go through my email or my social media accounts. You know, she don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's monitoring your children. It's, somebody mentioned it in the YouTube chat, but it's having a relationship with your kids. And like the parents know when their kids are not acting normal, right? The Sandy Hook shooter, he lived in the house with his mom, but for several months, he didn't speak to his mom in person. He would only communicate with her via email. How do you live in the same house with somebody, but you only communicate via email? He had pictures in his bedroom of serial killers and school shootings. And that's what he would research online all the time, was school shootings. He was infatuated by it. That's a big red flag. That's the time that you say, like, maybe my kid shouldn't be living at home. Maybe he needs to be somewhere else.
Well, in his defense, the guy had autism or Asperger's syndrome. But then again, here's the problem. If the sorry about that. Here's the problem. If the mother knew that this kid, her own son, had a problem, she should have done a better job of locking up her firearms. And he had easy access to them, and she knew it.
Not in the
So
Sandy Hook shooting. The Sandy Hook shooting,
completely
he murdered his mother and then took the guns out of a gun safe. So, I don't know what else you're going to do. If a kid is willing to murder their own parent, force a parent to open the gun safe and then murder them, like what you're dealing with a monster. And that mom, she tried to put her son inside of a mental health care facility and they wouldn't take him. And she didn't have the money to actually pay for it herself. She needed the state to pay for it. Exact same thing with this incident that just got released out of trial today or this week of the I think he's 23, ran over the father and wounded the two boys. The parents, it's a great, good Christian family. They've been trying to get help for their son for years, decades, and there was nowhere to put him. There was nothing the state could do. It took him killing someone for the state of Florida to finally say, okay, hey, we gotta put this person and kind of control him to some degree. Kareem, welcome to the stage, buddy. What do you have to add to this topic? Kareem, you there? I wish there was a way to like warn people I'm going to call your name in like 2 seconds. Make sure you're ready. Okay, anybody else have anything to say?
I do.
Go.
Back when I was in school, ever since, at least 89 and before, we always, every school, elementary, middle, and high school, had one or two school resource officers, or SROs.
Yeah.
They were actually had a school resource officer program through the city police department or the county police or county sheriff's office. Now, They were trained to work with children. They were a constant presence. They interacted with the children. They also knew that who the bad seeds were, so to say. Now, if they had a problem that they were concerned about a kid, they would bring the parents in, explain the situation, and the child or the kid was moved to another behavior school. So he was taken out of technically the good general population and put into another school. Is here in Pinellas County, we had like 3 of them, I believe. And they were all put together where they could get mental health evaluations, where they received their education, but the schools were around, they had like chain link fences around them type thing. They were confined. So, and they had a stronger police presence there so that we didn't have school shootings. We didn't have major drug issues because of the way that program worked. After 90, they got rid of those. And that's when all of a sudden Northeast High School, where I went to school, had the largest drug bust in 1991, 2 years after I graduated in Pinellas County. Why? Because the school resource officers were not there. They were allowed, they had the largest drug bust. And the only reason they found out is because they had snitches that were going to the school. And they kind of did a 21 Jump Street thing where they brought in undercover cops that portrayed to be students. That seemed to be the issue. So, I mean, plus we got to get rid of gun-free zones.
What's the name of it?
Michelle.
All in the back?
No,
Hey,
right here.
Kareem, you ready?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
I can. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thanks for having me on. I'd say first and foremost, one of the main things I've noticed is that they've done a horrible job with mental illness and behavior treatments nowadays. It seems like they've spent too much time making things that are really terrible, especially issues with mental illness, normal or okay, or don't pick on them because you hurt their feelings. And it's not about their feelings. You know, we talk about Sandy Hook. One thing we forget about that is that guy that did the shooting, part of his quote therapy, if everybody remember it, was his mom took him to the gun range.
Oh,
he was
interesting.
very proficient. Yeah, he was very proficient with every single last firearm that he used.
Yeah.
And so if we would, in my humble opinion, stop worrying so much about hurting people's feelings and start actually going back to real treatment. I'm not talking about moving people from bed to bed or, you know, putting them in jail and then when they dry out, throwing them back on the streets. I'm talking about actual real
help, the real stuff that they need to get better. Yeah.
Right. And understand that unfortunately the physical damage that's done to a person, the mental, psychological damage done to a person, that damage is damage. It doesn't go away because, you know, you locked them up for a couple of days or a couple of years and then you just throw them back to the wolves. I mean, I look at a situation similar to what's going on in Atlanta. What they tend to do is while the person's in jail or incarcerated, they get their medicines, they get certain types of counseling, something like that. And then when they get back out, they don't have access because they don't have a job or, you know, the family's not dealing with them to continue taking that medication or seeking that treatment. And, you know, it's gone past the quote wussification of the nation, as used to be said. It's gotten dangerous because mental behavioral health is a very serious thing. Always trying to, you know, throw off on it's the guns, this is this. No, let's stop and talk about the fact that guy in Sandy Hook had been trained proficiently with all those firearms he used.
Sure.
Yes, something was wrong with it. But we got to stop pretending like there's nothing wrong. That's one big thing I've noticed now. They always want to pretend like it's nothing wrong. No, there's something wrong. Now, what do we do with it now that we know something's wrong?
Sure. Identify the problem, and then we got to try to fix it. And listen, I'm probably going to get a lot of backlash over this, but not everybody should have access to guns. If you already, like the Sandy Hook shooter, if you are showing a consistent pattern of being unstable, of doing dangerous, violent things, you know, that mother has to think to herself, if she was smart, she would think, you know, maybe my kid is not the right kind of person to teach how to use a gun. maybe I shouldn't have guns that he can access. I mean, we have to think about that stuff. Because you're right, it is very dangerous to teach somebody that has a psychopathic kind of tendencies how to actually use these weapons.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
In Florida, we do have the Baker Act.
Yeah.
Now, the Baker Act, and I know because I've had to use it on my ex's daughter, it's 3 days for the very first time.
Sure.
After that, you get it a second time, you're in for 5 days. And then it's total mental evaluation from there. And they had mental health facilities. I know in Pasco County, I think they still have one. But when you're Baker acted, you go there. It's called the Harbor. And they do the counseling, mental evaluations, the medicines, or anything else that they need to be on. The problem is people don't realize, and I don't think teachers realize, they are authorized reporters under state law. They see something, they have to say something. That goes with child abuse, that goes with mental health.
Okay.
There are a couple of things I'd like to say to that. I had a conversation because I do think that some of the parents are also the problem. I had a conversation with a very, very close friend of mine who lives in New York. He travels to Florida a lot. And we were talking about all this. Now, he's not anti-guns. He's not anti-Second Amendment per se in terms of going out there and saying, oh, we should take the guns away from people and all that. He believes this is a constitutional right. But when it comes to his kid going to school, when we were talking about, he says, all these school shootings, what do you propose? And I said to him some of the things that Howard said and some of the things that I mentioned earlier. And he goes, I don't want my kid to go to a school with barbed wire and steal this and fortified doors and it's scary. And I don't want people walking around. I don't want teachers with guns and all that. He says, we need to sit down and hash out a solution. What do you think? I don't know what the solution is. And I said, I just gave you 2 solutions. And he goes, I guess you're right. You did. So they don't want to necessarily hear it. They react emotionally to it as if we are doing something to make their kids feel as if they are in Kabul right now or Somalia. We're not doing that. You want your kids protected, then you're going to have to make some compromises. So what's more important? The way the barbed wire and the steel gates look and bulletproof doors, or your kids being safe? What's more important to you?
But you know, Joe, it's interesting. I went to high school in Las Vegas, and in Las Vegas, the schools were just designed very different. So the outer walls were all concrete, and then they had these big like steel doors or gates that would open in the morning. They would open during lunch, but all the other time when school was in session, they were closed and locked. Unless you're opening them from the inside for an emergency, you're not getting through that door, right? So when I look at that school that I went to in Las Vegas compared to my kids' school today, the doors are all outward facing. Anybody around the building can hop a fence and run and charge into a classroom. There's just not much stopping them. So I think just the design of the way they're building these schools is very different, at least in Florida, than I was used to in Las Vegas. And I think, you know, your buddy is saying, I don't want them to see barbed wire. Nobody's talking about barbed wire. We're talking about they love to use this term, common sense gun reform. We're talking about common sense things that are going to actually deter a bad guy because they're not going to be able to just walk right in unencumbered. Go ahead, Joe.
No, I'm 100% in agreement with you. And I also think that when kids go to school, they see that, all these things that you just suggested, they're not paying attention to that. They are on their phones, and that's probably part of the reason why all the security is also necessary, because they don't teach them situational awareness. Even
True.
forget the guns for a second. Just something basic, like get off your phone when you walk outside. Look around you. When you're with your friends, is anybody following you? We got predators that don't necessarily need to get you with guns. They can simply get you with overpowering you because you're not paying attention and you don't know anything.
Sure.
So even start with that, with the basic things of that we teach new gun owners, being safe and responsible human being, never mind just a gun owner. So if you're a safe and responsible and self-aware, situationally aware as a human being, you're already showing a level of responsibility that as a gun owner will only translate automatically with additional training, of course.
Sure.
So I think that a lot of what you're saying is fine. I don't think there is any flack needed to be given. You're always going to have people who are going to blindly think that the Constitution gives us a right that everyone, responsible or otherwise, has the right to have. So you want common sense? That isn't common sense. I will gladly say I am not for constitutional carry without some form of serious training. I don't think that the concealed carry in Florida has enough training. And that's why responsible instructors do a little bit more than just have them fire a bullet and just send them home on their merry way. I think that you are putting something that carries responsibility with it. And most people, Ryan, you know, as well as any instructor out there will tell you, some people should not be carrying, even though they did everything that's necessary to get that permit. So then allowing people without a permit to just carry a gun. Look at what happened in Dallas. How many road rage shootings have we had in a few weeks? There are a lot of people who don't have the mindset. 7 in 8 weeks.
Okay.
So there are a lot of people out there that do not have the mindset for this. And we are going to let that happen and then have our schools completely exposed when you've got a huge number of people carrying guns and shouldn't be. I don't know. That's my opinion. I'm not for that without additional training and without more responsibility taken by parents, teachers, and school boards to protect the kids from this.
100% agree. Sorry, I'm going to interject because.
No, I'm done.
Oh, sorry. Okay, great. But everything you said is spot on. I'm still trying to go to, searching, for bigger solutions. I mean, there are building codes for states, cities, what have you. Why couldn't we get a building code change to give us the kind of security we talk about, whether it doors, walls, whatever security aspects, had been discussed today, which were all valid, and have a code established for schools, new construction, and visit some of the older schools, for renovation. And I just don't know why we can't work at a state level. And maybe, small steps might be better than one big step. I don't know. But I'm looking for a general solution that covers schools generally.
Yeah, so Howard, you're coming from the great communist state of New York, where you guys are used to trying to legislate how I breathe and when I'm allowed to, take a crap or whatever.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, so, you got to understand, we have two sides of this. When the Parkland shooting happened, everybody agrees this is a very tragic and it's a very terrible thing, and we need to figure out a solution. So they created a committee to watch. This committee was the only group besides law enforcement that was actually able to watch the surveillance footage of the shooting. So their goal was to watch it and then figure out what we need to do in our schools to prevent or at least hinder something like this from happening again. So, it was fascinating to me because I thought as soon as all these people watch it, they're going to be like, teachers need guns. There were several teachers that were just cowering down and hiding, trying to protect the kids, and then Nicholas just shot and killed them. That's a teacher that if they wanted a gun, you should let them carry a gun. But instead, you have, again, the pussification of America, where the sheep want to bury their heads in the sand and believe that the best way to stop a threat is to pretend that the threat doesn't exist. So I think what you're looking for, Howard, is we have to change the mindset of America. We have to start looking at real solutions here and not just talking about bullshit stuff that is not going to fix anything. Trying to ban an AR-15 is not going to stop school shootings. Trying to limit the amount of ammunition I can have in my magazine is not going to stop a school shooting. That's the stuff that doesn't matter. But for some reason, that's where all the attention and focus is on. We need to figure out real stuff, real solutions. But I don't know if people really want that.
Can I chime in right quick?
Go ahead, Kareem.
Speaking on the school side, one thing we have to remember is that, and like you're saying, he comes from that pro-communist state of New York. Everybody is different, and one thing I've noticed, especially when dealing with schools and dealing with other people's children, there are certain parents that all they want to do is whine and complain, and when you actually come up with a solution and say, okay, here's what we're going to do that'll make it safer, they'll pick the Parkland shooting and say, well, there was a sheriff deputy there and he ran away. Well, yeah, that's true, but it wasn't, that simple. That officer could have done something. He, like you said, chose to run away. But then one thing I've noticed is at private schools, they don't play around. I pick on some of the schools up around the DC area about how they have almost, paramilitary troops guarding their precious cargo, but everybody else has to have this long discussion about what to do in protecting their kids.
But isn't that funny, Kareem? Because those schools in DC, those are the private schools for the wealthy elite.
Yep. And I can tell you for a fact, as someone that it was their turn to do that job, and this has been several years ago, when it was my turn, I was, armed and I had on Kevlar. Okay. They weren't kidding about their kids.
Yeah.
I'm like 6'5", 280. They wanted me there. They wanted me there with the gun visible. There was no concealed carry like if it was Secret Service.
Yeah.
They wanted the firearm visible. And going back to one thing someone said about the barbed wire, here's the thing. If a kid is in like a detention or like a prison school, yeah, barbed wire. But for normal, everyday, regular kids, no barbed wire. The point I think gets missed is the person that comes to the school to kill someone is a lunatic. I've seen situations where you've had idiots jump a fence to try to get on the school property to do something dumb.
Yeah.
So one thing we have to always keep in mind is that when it comes to our children, care as much about their safety as the wealthy or the whoop-de-woo do, and stop going around and around in circles. Pardon me for saying this, I don't know if we can curse me or not. This bullshit. Because I can tell you for a fact, they're not playing any games about their kids.
Yeah.
These little discussions we're having here, they're not even humoring any of that shit.
Yeah.
When it comes to their children, the bullshit comes to a complete stop. There is no long discussion. There is no feelings. It's bottom line. If someone comes here to harm one of ours, take them out. We will get you a good attorney.
Yeah.
And if middle class, I hate to say it, the John McCain middle class would get that through their thick skulls, that would help. Because I'm telling you, everyone else takes care of their kids and they don't have these dumb discussions. They don't play any games. They don't pretend. They don't give a damn about feelings. If you go to one of what I call the skull and bone schools, if you go there to harm one of their kids, you're going to have a problem. And we need to have the same, love, protection, and common sense like them grown. I went through the background check. I got all the proper permits and everything like that. I'm for that. But one thing that bothers me also is you have these people jumping up and down about, background checks and blah, blah, blah. But that seems to disappear when it comes time to vote. Last I checked, only American citizens can vote for president. But these same people will have a seizure, when you say okay, maybe we need some type of way to identify and validate who's voting, but we'll universal. You want universal background checks, but you don't want voter ID.
It's
That's what I'm
hilarious, isn't
saying
it?
about that mentality. But that's all I'm saying. I won't go off on the voting, but we're focused on government. I'm saying that's something to think about.
I wanted. That's the point that I made earlier. If it's all about voting, why isn't the attention put on these school board, city, city or school boards that are the pussies that you're referring to, Ryan, and have them replaced by people who are like-minded, like we're discussing? And otherwise, you're going to have tragedies, conversations, and nothing. It's like Florida used to be known for sun, fun, and nothing done. So, I mean, I'm concerned about why there hasn't been, formation. I mean, parents pay for the schools, pay the salaries, in essence, of the school boards. I don't know why there isn't an effort on their part to gather as a group and make some changes on those boards, and then make the changes necessary in the school, as everyone has discussed, which are all valid.
It's because nobody is researching who these school board members are.
Uh-huh.
They are not, and the problem is they're looking at, okay, are they Democrat? Are they Republican? And they vote their party line, and
but
that's where most of this problem is coming. And the
but they're,
problem
they're
is they're
but,
politicians that
but
are on the school board. They're not actual parents.
oh, that's the point. If they're not parents, maybe there should be parenthood as one of the necessary things, to get on a school board. I mean, if you're not a parent, you can't understand, the children and how parents feel about the children. And I don't know that politicians or those that use it as a leg up to their next political positioning should be allowed on school boards, when our focus should be about the schools.
I believe it's money talks and bullshit walks. Bloomberg is
Correct.
backing a lot of these people getting into these positions.
Very true.
And like I said, if you have the money to put these people in, how does a middle class person fight a $66 billion man?
As a large group. I mean, they could have the big money, so to speak, but I feel that as a group getting together, I mean, you add all that money value to the equation, and you can come up with a strong position. I mean, I'm not believing that we should operate just as individuals. I'm intending, when I get to Florida, to try, that's capital TRY, try to, like, generate group feeling focused on the specific problem, and make the changes necessary if possible.
Problem is, Howard, they are doing that now. Parents are uprising against masks. They're uprising
Okay.
against CRT here in Florida. Now, I know
Okay.
personally in Pinellas County, there was a large group all showed up at the Pinellas County school board meeting. They were arrested or not allowed in the building. They were
Yeah, I saw that.
yeah.
I saw that.
And
But
same thing is happening in Loudoun County, same in Virginia. Same thing is happening in Broward County. This is a problem where these school board members, granted, they have the power, so they feel that they can do whatever they want,
they're
and
up
that
for election.
not
Uh
no some of these like Pinellas County, we just had an election back in November, and
huh.
so we've got two or three of them that are now sitting on the school board. And I know one of them used to be a council member for the city of St. Petersburg. And he doesn't have any children that are currently in school dealing with today's problems. All his kids are grown. He has no clue what these children are going through right now. And that's why, we've got parents that are stepping up. Unfortunately, the damage is already done for
Oh,
this election.
when is the next election? 22.
For school board members, they run out every 2 years. They go up for election. Now,
That's it.
one member on the Pinellas County School Board, happens to be an old teacher of mine. Now he is, and his wife is a teacher. So I can see teachers running and I can see parents running. But some of these, like Carl Nurse on the school board in Pinellas County, is an old politician from the city city council. He tried to run for mayor. It didn't work for him, so he jumped on the school board train.
But he's going to be up for election, correct?
No, he was just elected. He got in November or January 1 this year.
But
he was elected November of last year.
I'm a firm believer if it's 2 years that we could like work hard to organize. And absolutely, when I unfortunately use the word target, unfortunately, I just want to focus on those individuals that are the core of the cancer. And if there's a possibility to make the situation healthier, it's a matter of like focusing on those that are the problem. And I'm just, wondering if
Can I
there's a
ask a quick
way to
question?
do that.
What's the salaries down there to be on school boards in Florida?
I have no
The
idea.
salary for a school board is $75,000 to $125,000.
Damn.
And that's the reason why, because in Georgia, and I'm going to pick on my adopted home state of Georgia because that's what I know. Clayton County, Georgia, it's a county south of Fulton County where the airport is, Hartsfield Jackson Airport is. They had people who were on the school board at one point that didn't even live in Clayton County. Now they changed it around 2008, 2009, but I remember when Clayton County lost its accreditation. And it came from the fact that people were there not because they cared anything about changing anything or making anything better. They were there because of that salary. And if being on a school board in Florida, you can make almost $100,000 for 2 years. I'm not saying that compensating people for the diversity of problems they have in the state of Florida shouldn't be compensated, but that's where you have to look at it. They're there for that $100,000 salary plus maybe they get state Blue Cross and Blue Shield and all these different things like that, and they're not doing anything to help anybody. Because I know for a fact, for a while in Clayton County, until the lawsuits came, the civil suits came, there were people who lived as far away as Cobb County who were sitting on the school board down in Clayton County, and all they were doing was collecting money. I'm gonna pick on Fulton County school system. Back when they had the cheating scandal. Another thing, a bunch of bureaucrats that were there honestly for the money. And if it's that lucrative to sit, I mean, think about it. You sit on a school board, really and truly, what do? You're not a principal.
Probably
You're not
nothing.
Assistant principal. Yeah, exactly. And you get $100,000 a year.
The Pinellas County Board of or the county commissioners in Pinellas County, they're the same thing. And a lot of them, if they had tried to run for school board, couldn't make it. They ran for county commissioner. And now we got a county commissioner that's trying to run for mayor of St. Petersburg. He has already been involved with paying somebody off to get his wife back her job after she was fired. The corruption runs strong with these people. And the problem is, county commissioners, they can continue to run up until the time they decide they don't want to run anymore.
Okay.
And they're making at least 125 to 150.
But who's paying them? Obviously, it's the people
taxpayers.
In the county. The taxpayers, right?
The taxpayers. Our
so
money goes to pay their salaries, really, but they don't listen to us. That's part of the issue.
I have to get my head, wrapped around, understanding why there isn't a larger movement, as you suggested, which I totally agree with. I mean, even if, I just, donated to Larry Elder in California. It doesn't matter to me where it is. Anybody that will better their state in any way, shape, or form, I'm looking to get into office. And if these people are the problem that we do see, and individuals are frustrated because it's like 10 or 20, against a sitting powerful council or, school board. I'm just wondering why. I mean, even the GOA, if you're a member of the GOA and you like get involved in one of the national organizations, USCC, I mean, see if you're able to donate to local people to like replace the problem people through some of the national organizations for gun
Okay,
owners.
Howard, here, let me help you explain, okay? Especially here in Pinellas County, okay?
Yeah.
Say I'm running for city council of
Oh,
the
good.
city of
Okay.
St. Petersburg, okay?
Good. Good.
Born and
Good.
raised here all my life. I've got hundreds of friends that are still in the area. They know me. Now,
Yeah.
running for city council, I have to have at least $100,000 up front in order to get my name on that ballot. Now, how am I going to get that money? I'm campaigning. I'm spending my own money instead of part of that $100,000 in order to get my name on the ballot. But I have to campaign to get my name out there. If I'm just little old me, okay, now I'm running for city council. I'm going up against a big name. Okay, say I'm going up against Rick Kreisman decides he wants to be on city council instead of mayor. Everybody knows who Rick Kreisman is. That's part of the problem, is that it's a name recognition, and he has big donors that are
Okay.
outside the state of Florida. How am I going to get those big donors from the
Yeah.
outside the state?
Yeah. That's a
Florida,
Michelle.
Florida
That's a
does not.
It's
I
a
know, but
reality
Florida
check.
doesn't stop the donors from outside the state.
So
Money is
go.
money.
I don't know how GoFundMe works, or I don't know if, as a gun owner and as informational as you are, that, if you're a member, let's say, of the GOA, and if you contacted them as a national organization and say, we have to address these particular problems to stop, gun violence in the schools. I'm just wondering if that doesn't tap a nerve in one of the national organizations to allow you to solicit people for donation to make those changes on the board to protect your children in your schools. I'm just looking for, it's out of
Yeah,
the
but
box thinking.
Howard, is you've got one person running, you call them the problem, right? But they also call our way of thinking the problem. So we've got our side of money trying to fund and get, our type of thinking, our way of thinking into office, but they're also funding a ton of it too, man. And we've got our national organizations, GOA, NRA, FPC, the Firearm Policy Coalition. We've got them fighting, but then we've also got all these other companies fighting. Mothers Against Guns, Mom Demand Action, whatever. We're at a roadblock here. I personally think it is very disgusting how politicians are able to make so much money in political office. I think it is.
A lot of them have PACs, and especially I know here on the local level, because I used to work for the city, so I know how it all runs. Now, in the state of Florida, any donations is become public knowledge. It's part of the Sunshine Law. So you can pull up even judges. My ex got custody of my kids because his sister wrote a check for a couple $1,000s to the judge for his campaign fund. Now, I found this out when it was listed. He had to publicly release who gave him money for his campaign fund so he could run.
So how do you form a PAC?
That's the thing. You need money to form the PAC. And
What kind of money? What kind of money? And I'm just looking for the conduit or the catalyst. And when I suggested, let's say the GOA, and if you tapped into them and they allowed you, as part of their, advertising promotion or site, to, ask for donations for a particular area in Florida that is trying to ward off potential problems of gun violence in the school. I'm just looking for where, Ryan, your point is well taken, but I'm just saying, I don't give up easily, obviously. And I'm
okay,
just looking for ways.
here's a way. Like, you look at every, and I'm going to do party lines here. You look at every Democrat politician. If you look at all their finances that they have coming in, they always have, there's one PAC in particular that donates to all of these Democratic politicians. Who is that PAC supported by, or their main contributor? George Soros. He's a billionaire. That's part of the problem.
This conversation's getting away from us a little bit.
Well, I'm saying you have one or two major players that trickle it down. And
Sure.
that's part of the problem. So you have someone like me who I've had enough with the city council. I've had enough with them destroying my city, and I will think I'm going to go onto the dais and make a change. Problem is, I can't even get my name on the ballot unless I come up with $100,000. That's part of the problem. You have to be a politician with backing already in order to get your name even on the ballot.
You need a new sugar daddy.
Yeah, because nobody's going to vote for you if nobody knows who you are, right? And you got to build, it goes back to even just growing a business, a very basic concept of build your audience before you launch your business. So
Website.
that you have your audience and then you launch your product and you've already got built-in customers, right? So you don't really run for office unless you've already got a decent amount of support of people that you know you can. It's like attorneys, right? Attorneys don't ask questions unless they know the answer to that question. You run for office when you already know I've got everything I need to succeed here. Because if you do it the other way, you're just pissing in the wind.
Correct.
All right, guys. Anybody have anything else to add on the topic of how do we stop school shootings?
You need the money, so play lotto.
Here's one thought on how to stop the shootings. How about teachers who want to carry firearms and get certified don't force every teacher to do it.
Yeah.
And tell teachers, tell this new generation teachers point blank, listen, there are people out there who are crazy. There are people out there that mean you harm. If you don't want to pick up a gun and shoot anyone, fine. But your voice drowning out the voice of reason saying we must be armed or at least have the capacity to be armed. Because if you look at what happened with the sheriff in
Parkland?
that Parkland, yeah.
Yeah.
He had a gun, I'm guessing licensed Florida peace officer, and then you say, well, his hands were tied because he couldn't do anything because of what's that law you got down there where you have to wait for SWAT or
Yeah, like I don't know what the law is that you're referencing, but he tried to claim that he was supposed to wait until the SWAT showed up, but in reality, he was supposed to go in.
Exactly, and that's my point.
It's not a law. It's not a law. It was a rule that the main sheriff in that county created. And that's why Governor DeSantis removed that sheriff and took him out of office.
And the officer that hid and refused to go in got arrested. And I don't know if he actually got convicted or not, but he did get arrested for his decision.
No, he got off. He got off because he said it was the he was just going. He played it that he was just going by the standard procedure as set forth by the sheriff in charge.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. To help solve that, one way to solve that, and it's just my humble opinion, one personal opinion. There are teachers who love their kids to death. Okay,
yep.
When the shooting starts, the kid's going to be left there by themselves. So for those that will lead their kids out by saying, watch what I'm doing and be sure you follow behind me or you're going to get left behind. Don't ban teachers who can pass the background check. Which, if you're in the classroom, I believe you should be able to pass the background check anyway.
Sure.
But if you can pass the background check and you want to conceal carry, I don't believe that it's the worst thing. You say a kid, listen, we're past if a kid finds it. We're talking about someone who deliberately is going to cause harm. Someone who wants to do this, who's made up in their mind they're coming. The hypothetical of a kid could find the gun.
But Kareem, that doesn't even matter. Tiffany and I have run inner city children's ministries. We've worked in the children's area of our church. The entire time I've had a gun on me. I've played with kids. I've run around and chased them and stuff. And I had a gun. The gun is on me. A kid can't just come up and take it without me allowing them to take it. So I think it'd be very dumb to allow a teacher to just have a gun in a desk drawer. That's obviously not responsible gun ownership. But having a gun, if I was a teacher, I am exactly the person that you would want to have a gun at a school. I'm responsible.
But that common sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Did those kids know you had a gun on you, or it was completely concealed? That's the problem too. Is these parents, oh, I don't want the teacher having a gun. Well, how are the parents going to know if the teacher's concealed? They
Yeah, I mean,
should not know.
we didn't hide it. All the parents knew that I had a gun. They all know what I do for a living, right? So we didn't hide it. If you're also paying attention, kids would come up and hug me, and they would be a little bit too aggressive, and they'd hit their head on my gun. It happens all the time, even to this day. So they know, right? And I tell them, I have it to protect you from bad guys. That's it. Pretty simple.
I'd rather
And
see a sign outside the schools that say something like, warning, staff members are armed and trained. Any attempts to hurt these children will be met with deadly force, instead of no guns allowed. Because that, when somebody comes with a gun and reads that sign instead of gun free, they would think twice, because they know they have a better chance of getting themselves
Exactly.
shot.
Exactly. Gun-free zones are nothing but an invitation, letting the bad guy know that, hey, nobody's going to resist me in here. They can't. Nobody has guns.
And then let's
So
also we talk about common sense. If gun-free zones have failed, Parkland was a gun-free zone. That many people died, that people got shot. That's clearly a failure. Why isn't that part of the common sense discussion also?
But see, Kareem,
Same thing
because they don't
everything.
they don't want common sense, because we know that the statistics prove that gun-free zones have failed for decades. But they don't want to talk about that. Their concept is, let's create more of something that we already know does not work.
So I'm going to chime in here and use the Pulse nightclub shooting, because that guy, before he shot up the Pulse nightclub, he went to Disney Springs and decided, hey, this is not a good place because they have too much security and there's too many security measures in place, and I'm not going to be able to, basically kill as many people as I would like to before somebody stops me. And there was another place too, Ryan. I can't remember where it was.
Universal City Walk.
Oh, City Walk at Universal. He went and checked out that place
And there
and
weren't enough
decided
people.
that there wasn't enough people. So I think that taking that example of that, a shooter is looking, just like anything, they are looking for an easy target. They are looking for the least resistance, just like the typical wolf in society that, wants to rob someone. They're not looking for someone that's, not on their phone and is actually aware and is using situational awareness. They look to the next person who's going to be down looking at their phone and not paying attention. So we have to send that message with our schools that this is not an easy target. This is not going to be easy for you, and you're going to be shot dead before you even, get your firearm unholstered. And that's the kind of thing that will stop that from happening, because they don't want to just go in there and die. They want to go in there and hurt people before they die. And if they're just going to go in there to die, they will not do it. They will find a different way or a different place. Problem is, then they're just going to probably be like the other asshole that shot up the movie theater. I mean, the issue here really is one mind, many weapons. And if you stop them from going to one place, they will just find another place to go. If you take their weapon away, they will just find a different weapon, whether it's a homemade bomb, a vehicle, something.
So Tiff, let me ask you, is the problem today, is it the fact that the media glorifies active shootings? Because that is what happens. There's a shooting, the shooter's face is on TV for weeks, sometimes months. And I think other people that don't see value in their own lives are like, you know what? I'm going to get value. I'm going to get status by committing this violent act so that I can be all over TV. Do you think the problem, like if you remember in New Zealand, there was a man that went into 2 mosques and he murdered a bunch of people. The New Zealand media refused to show this man's picture. They refused to say his name because they didn't want other people in New Zealand to feel like they could get glory from committing such a violent act.
Well, to add to what you said, one part of it is that the media, unfortunately, in the United States, lies about what goes on with these shootings. If we could get some type of standard to say, listen, we know you want to report it, we know facts change, but don't just blatantly lie about what happened during the shooting. Just when you look at what happened in Charleston, we're finding out now that the shooter at Charleston, he will face the death penalty because he killed too many people. Forgetting that one of the people he killed was a South Carolina state, either congressman or senator. So if we could get the media here to stop lying all the time about school shootings, that would help, because when they lie about it the way they do and they leave out things, or they focus on a narrative that has nothing to do with what's going on, and they skip over the fact, I say this again, mental and behavioral health issues are real issues. It's not okay. All right. If they were to stop trying to make that okay and start worrying about people's feelings as far as that, and actually focus on treatment and making things better, and stop just saying we'll throw up a red flag. Well, can I remind everybody of something? The Charleston shooter went through the next background check, had been arrested for a minor drug, possession, which should have disqualified him from getting the firearm, but it didn't. And he went to that church. He didn't go to the church saying, he quote hated everyone at church. He went there saying these are the people that he needed to kill to start a war.
Oh, is this for real? I guess I need to study this person. I didn't know this.
Please. You will be stunned to silence to realize that when he killed those people in that church, he was at
this is a black church, right? That he went and shot up?
Right.
So he was trying to start a race war? Is that what his goal was?
Yeah, that was his goal.
Dylan Roof?
Wow. That idiot. I won't say his name, but that idiot. He sat through the entire Bible study with them. They welcomed him, showed him love, whole nine, and he didn't do what he did, claiming that he hated them. He did it because he said these are the people he needed to keep.
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying? That fact is the fact that you're just hearing this from me, and that's been, 3 years now, almost 2-3 years now? That is what I mean. This guy didn't necessarily, I'm not saying he had love in his heart when he shot. I'm not saying that either. But he didn't go there, randomly. He sat in Bible study with them.
Sure.
The entire time, and afterwards came to the conclusion, these are the people he needs to get because that'll start the war.
Wow.
But nobody wants to tell the truth. We're talking about common sense. He went through the next background check. Mm-hmm. He had been arrested, had a minor drug possession. He had, all the things that they want to flag you now on social media. He had the racist rhetoric, the I can't think of the actual name of the flag that it's basically the rebel flag. I just call it the rebel flag. The one that was on top of the General Lee. All of these things.
What's the Rhodesian flag?
It's a Confederacy flag.
It's one of the Confederate flags, but it's not the actual Confederate flag. We call it the rebel flag we've misnamed it the battle flag, but it's not. But it is a Confederate flag.
Yeah.
But my point is,
it's a rebellious flag. Yeah, it's a rebel flag. It's the one that everybody uses now.
Right.
On the General Lee.
Right. My point is, like I said, if they would stop lying about that and stop, because here's the thing, as someone who's been the protector and went through all the license background check, here's what I know for a fact. I have friends that are hyper liberal. Hyper liberal. But you know what else they are? They want me to take them to the range and teach them how to shoot their firearm.
And I think that is amazing. Range time. I think that's awesome.
Right. Hyper, liberal, and you don't need guns because but we'll go to the range and will ask me, look, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute, why are you shouldn't be struggling at all. Listen, I got 5 kids. I got 2 ex-wives, 3 ex-husbands, whatever like that. And I'm like, wait a minute. So this is your mentality, but you're, and that's why I say, if there were any type of standards in reporting in media, lies wouldn't be told like that. And we would have to basically cut the bullshit and say, listen, the world is not perfect. We're not going out here looking for trouble. However, we do need to take steps to protect ourselves and our families. Because let me tell you, the liberals who are running around here talking all this garbage, listen to me. They're armed. They're not anti-gun. They just don't want you to have guns.
You know what? It's funny, but I would say a solid 40 to 45% of our students every month are liberals. And we had a a Democrat politician do a private shooting course with me and her husband and daughter. So you're right. Like they tote that we shouldn't have guns, but they're also going out there and getting guns. we're going to end it on that because I think what Kareem was saying was pretty powerful. So thank you guys very much for joining us on this Clubhouse and live stream. We're going to be back next Wednesday, 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Big thanks to everybody that was up here on the stage. Really appreciate you guys. Big thanks to Kareem. I enjoyed listening to you, man. Arthur, Joe.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. It was awesome.
Oh, thank you.
God bless. Good night, y'all.
Thank you, Ryan. Good night. Appreciate it.
Good night, y'all. Bye.
Good night, folks.
All right, we're going to shut that down. Big thanks, everybody on YouTube, Facebook. Be safe.